Life gets messy. Problems appear when you least expect them, and your mind can feel like it's spinning out of control. But staying calm and thinking smart can change everything. This audiobook, Stay Calm, Think Smart, The Art of Critical Thinking in Difficult Situations, will show you how to handle stress, make clear decisions, and stay steady when life feels chaotic. You'll learn how to slow down, question what's true, control emotions, and build the kind of mindset that keeps you grounded no matter what happens. Each chapter gives you real, practical steps you can use right away to stay balanced and confident in any situation. So if you're ready to think sharper, act wiser, and stay calm when it counts, make sure to watch till the end, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful life lessons that keep you growing every single day. Number 1. Pause before reacting. A sudden shout, a slammed door, a message that feels like a verdict. The body tightens, breath shortens, eyes sharpen. The first impulse is a reaction, a sharp reply, a defensive posture, an accusation launched like an arrow. Pausing in that moment is the simplest, most powerful act of self-command available. Pause is the gap between instinct and choice. It is the small distance where a different future gets decided. Pausing is not weakness. Pausing is mastery. When the body moves toward instant reaction, chemistry takes over. Heart rate rises, muscles prepare for motion. A rush of adrenaline narrows attention to threat. That circuitry served survival for millennia, but it is poorly calibrated for modern life, where words, reputations, and relationships often need thoughtful handling rather than raw force. Pausing creates space for reason. It allows the rational mind to engage, for perspective to arrive, and for action that aligns with values rather than emotion. This chapter teaches how to turn a pause into a daily discipline, a reliable tool for handling pressure with clarity and dignity. A pause begins with noticing. The first practical move is to recognize the physical signs of reactivity: a quickened pulse against the throat, heat behind the eyes, a clench in the jaw, the reflex to breathe shallow and fast. Notice the impulse as if watching a wave swell. Name it. Naming calms the brain. Say inwardly in a neutral tone, anger, fear, or rush. That small act of labeling shifts the brain from automatic response to reflective mode. The name is a handhold to steady the mind. Breath is the most immediate tool to anchor the pause. Take 3 slow, deliberate breaths. Inhale through the nose for a comfortable count. Feel the chest and belly expand, and exhale fully through the mouth until the shoulders drop. This is not a mystical exercise. It is a physiological reset. Slow breathing lowers the heart rate and floods the body with oxygen, which helps the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that plans, weighs options, and uses language, reassert control. Practice this breath in low-stress moments so it becomes automatic when tension arrives. A structured micro-routine converts the pause into a habit. Stop, breathe, name, assess, choose, act. Each word is a step that can be followed in seconds. Stop physical movement or speech. Breathe 3 full breaths. Name the dominant emotion. Assess the situation with 2 quick questions. What is actually happening? What matters most right now? Choose a response that aligns with long-term aims rather than short-term comfort. Then act. This routine is fast enough for conversations and robust enough for crises. Rehearse it like a short ritual so it can be executed under pressure. Use sensory grounding to widen perspective. When emotions narrow perception, deliberately shift attention to external details. Feel the floor under the feet. Notice the texture of fabric on the arm. Identify 3 colors in the room. Sensory anchors break the tunnel vision that intensifies reactivity. They remind the nervous system that the environment is larger than the immediate threat, and open mental space for judgment and restraint. Words matter. Delaying speech by even a phrase softens outcomes. Replace immediate rebuttals with neutral, stabilizing language. I hear that, or I need a moment. These short sentences signal composure and create time without escalating conflict. When a quick answer is necessary, choose curiosity over certainty. Ask one clarifying question rather than make an accusation. Curiosity slows conversation, gathers facts, and often redirects tension toward problem solving. In daily practice, train the mouth to ask before it defends. Physical posture reinforces mental state. Straighten the spine, relax the shoulders, and soften the jaw. An upright, calm posture sends feedback to the brain. Posture and mindset are connected. Standing or sitting with an open chest reduces the chemical intensity of stress and supports clearer thinking. Small physical adjustments are immediate and effective anchors for restraint. Prepare for triggers in advance. Identify patterns that consistently provoke reactive responses, certain phrases, people, or topics. Use a short written plan for each trigger, the typical reaction, the desired response, and a fallback phrase. For example, trigger, being interrupted at work, typical reaction, sharp tone, desired response, calm correction. Fallback phrase, I'll finish this point and then I'll listen. Rehearsing plans turns automatic reactions into chosen behaviors. Stoic practice thrives on preparation. Anticipation reduces surprise and increases control. Practice mental rehearsal. Visualize a tense interaction and run through the pause routine. Picture the breath, the naming, the sensory grounding, the question asked instead of the attack launched. Imagining success wires the brain for actual performance. These rehearsals can be short. Spend 5 minutes a day imagining one difficult conversation and navigating it with composure. Over time, the imagination becomes a rehearsal stage for real-life self-command. Short delays have surprisingly large benefits. Time reduces emotional intensity. A 10-second pause often feels like a long time when first practiced, but it dramatically changes the quality of the response. When stakes are higher, lengthen the pause, step away, breathe, and return with a clearer plan. In written communication, impose a rule to wait before hitting send. Draft the message, then wait 15 minutes or better an hour. Revision after cooling often reveals tone, assumptions, and unnecessary harshness that vanish with time. Journaling cements the habit. After tense encounters, write a brief note: what happened, what the immediate impulse was, what response was chosen, and what worked or failed. Over weeks, patterns emerge. The journal becomes a mirror that highlights progress and stubborn habits. Make it short but consistent, 5 to 10 lines that capture learning points. This practice turns each stressful moment into a learning opportunity and reinforces the Stoic aim of continuous self-improvement. Teach the pause by example. Relationships change when one person models restraint. In family, friendship, and work situations, a calm reaction invites calm in others. When a partner expects a heated exchange and instead receives measured words and steady breath, their reactivity often mirrors the new tone. The pause is contagious in a constructive way. Composure begets composure. There will be setbacks. Reactivity is deeply rooted and sometimes will win. That is part of progress. When immediate reactions occur, respond with kindness to oneself. Analyze the moment later with curiosity, not self-judgment. Identify the trigger, the body's signals, and one small adjustment for next time. Stoic resilience accepts failure as data. Each slip is an invitation to refine the pause. Actionable drills accelerate mastery. Drill 1. Set a timer for 2 hours and commit to pausing for 3 breaths before speaking. Drill 2. During one conversation per day, practice asking one clarifying question instead of offering an immediate opinion. Drill 3. Before responding to any written message marked important, draft and then sleep on it. Draft now, wait an hour, and then finalize. Make these small practices habitual. Consistency. Long-term transformation requires values alignment. Ask what kind of person these pauses are shaping. The practice of pausing cultivates reliability, thoughtfulness, and steadiness. It reduces regret and preserves relationships. When pause becomes a moral muscle, choices align with principles rather than impulses. That alignment is liberating. Decisions reflect judgment rather than reaction. The final point is courage. Pausing requires courage because it defies urgency and common instinct. It is easier to be swept by emotion than to hold firm. The pause demands courage to tolerate silences, to accept temporary uncertainty, and to prioritize what matters most over immediate gratification. Each successful pause reinforces that courage and makes the next one easy. Practice now, not as a promise, but as a step. Notice a small tension in the coming hour and apply the routine. Stop, breathe, name, assess, choose, act. Record the outcome in a single sentence. Repeat tomorrow and the day after. Over weeks, the reflex will bend. Pausing becomes less of an effort and more of a default, a quiet and consistent power that shapes every difficult situation into an opportunity for wise action. Number 2, question every assumption. Every belief carried, every conclusion drawn, every decision made stands on a foundation of assumptions, silent and visible, and often unquestioned. These assumptions shape perception, influence emotion, and drive behavior more than facts ever do. They whisper definitions of what is possible, what is fair, what is true, and what is worth pursuing. Questioning assumptions is not about doubting everything. It is about clearing the fog that prevents clear judgment. When assumptions remain unexamined, life runs on autopilot, choices narrow, and understanding stays shallow. Growth begins when curiosity replaces certainty. Assumptions operate quietly, blending with reality so seamlessly that they appear as truth. A person might think, they ignored my message because they dislike me, or I'm not good at this, or that goal is out of reach. These statements feel factual, yet each hides an untested premise. The first hides the assumption that silence equals rejection. The second assumes ability is fixed. The third assumes limits are permanent. Each assumption, once accepted without question, shapes the emotional landscape and dictates the response. To think critically in difficult situations, one must learn to separate what is known from what is merely believed. The habit of questioning begins with awareness. In any tense or uncertain moment, notice statements that contain absolute words: always, never, everyone, impossible, must. These are red flags of assumption. When the mind produces such words, pause and challenge them with a simple inquiry. Is that absolutely true? This question is small but powerful. It opens space between perception and fact. Often the answer reveals that the statement is only partly true or based on limited experience. The purpose is not to dismantle every thought, but to bring humility and accuracy into thinking. When emotions surge, assumptions multiply. Anger assumes injustice. Fear assumes danger. Disappointment assumes failure. Emotional intensity compresses reasoning and makes generalizations appear solid. The practical step is to write down the thought exactly as it appears, then list what evidence supports it and what evidence challenges it. This written contrast turns vague beliefs into tangible information. It forces the mind to weigh, not re-evidence testing, trains objectivity and builds a disciplined intellect, capable of separating feeling from fact. Curiosity is the natural antidote to assumption. A curious mind asks, what else could this mean? That single question reframes a situation. If a colleague speaks sharply, curiosity asks whether they might be tired, distracted, or under pressure rather than intentionally rude. If plans collapse, curiosity asks what new path might open because of it. By entertaining multiple explanations, the mind stays flexible, less ruled by ego, and more capable of accurate judgment. Curiosity converts confusion into exploration, rather than frustration. Listening is another critical part of questioning assumptions. Many conflicts arise not from facts, but from incomplete understanding of others' perspectives. In conversation, instead of preparing replies, focus entirely on understanding the other side. Ask clarifying questions. What led you to see it that way? Or can you tell me more about that decision? Genuine listening uncovers hidden contexts and reduces projection. When assumptions drop, connection grows. The calm listener becomes a rare presence in a noisy world, respected, trusted, and clear-minded. To question assumptions about oneself requires courage. People often carry inherited beliefs about worth, potential, and identity. I'm just not the type to lead. I always mess up under pressure. People like me never get chances. These internal narratives sculpt the boundaries of ambition. Challenge them directly. Ask, who said this first? When did I start believing it? Is it still true? Many self-limiting ideas trace back to childhood experiences, cultural messages, or outdated comparisons. Replace them with tested evidence, times when effort led to progress, when resilience overcame doubt, when unexpected success proved capacity. Questioning inner assumptions rebuilds confidence from truth rather than habit. Observation reveals how assumptions distort perception. Two people can experience the same event and draw opposite conclusions based on different underlying beliefs. One sees setback, another sees opportunity. The difference lies in mental filters. To refine perception, deliberately expose yourself to contrasting viewpoints, books, conversations, environments outside your comfort zone. Diversity of thought acts as a mirror, reflecting unnoticed biases. Each exposure widens mental perspective and weakens the hold of rigid assumptions. The wise mind welcomes contradiction as a teacher. Decision-making improves dramatically when assumptions are surfaced and tested. Before committing to a choice, list the key assumptions it depends on. For each, ask, what if this is wrong, and how would I know sooner rather than later? This approach, used by experienced strategists and thinkers, prevents costly errors. It also builds agility, as one learns to pivot when new data appears. The strongest plans are not those built on perfect certainty but on awareness of what might be uncertain. Questioning assumptions also strengthens empathy. When judging others, pause to consider what unseen pressures or stories might explain their behavior. Every action, even unpleasant ones, often makes sense from the actor's viewpoint. Seeing this does not excuse harm, but expands understanding. Compassion arises when one recognizes that most people act within the limits of their own assumptions, just as we do. This insight reduces anger and opens the door to wiser responses. Real-world application demands practice. Choose one recurring frustration, a coworker's behavior, a family conflict, a persistent worry. Write the automatic thoughts that appear when it happens. For each, identify the assumption and create at least two alternative explanations. Observe which version changes your emotional state. Often simply admitting that multiple interpretations exist softens frustration and invites calmer action. Over time, this process becomes second nature. The brain learns to delay judgment and seek evidence before conclusion. In moments of disagreement, use the phrase, "I might be wrong." It is a simple shield against arrogance and a powerful invitation for clarity. Those 4 words signal openness and encourage honest dialogue. They shift focus from defending ego to discovering truth. Humility in conversation disarms tension and transforms conflict into cooperation. The more often it is practiced, the less frequently misunderstandings escalate. Technology and constant information flow magnify the danger of untested assumptions. News headlines, social media posts, and algorithms feed confirmation bias, the tendency to favor information that supports existing beliefs. To counter this, deliberately seek sources that challenge your viewpoint. Read arguments from opposing sides, not to agree but to understand reasoning. Awareness of bias reduces manipulation and fosters independent thought. Critical thinkers are hard to mislead because they ask questions before accepting claims. Inner calm accompanies the questioning habit. When the mind no longer rushes to conclusions, anxiety lessens. There is freedom in admitting I don't know yet. It removes pressure to interpret every event instantly. Patience with uncertainty builds emotional strength. The world remains unpredictable, but a questioning mind adapts instead of panicking. It turns unknowns into opportunities for learning rather than threats to control. Teaching this approach to others reinforces it within oneself. Encourage open discussion where questions are welcomed instead of dismissed. Model the habit by asking thoughtful questions and admitting when assumptions are discovered. This creates an environment of honesty and continuous improvement, whether in family, friendship, or leadership roles. The people around you will mirror that openness, leading to better collaboration and mutual respect. Over time, the practice of questioning assumptions transforms character. It cultivates a balanced mixture of skepticism and faith. Skepticism toward untested ideas and faith in the process of inquiry. Life becomes less about defending opinions and more about discovering accuracy. Challenges become easier to navigate because perception sharpens. Every decision becomes more deliberate, less impulsive. Confidence grows, not from being always right, but from knowing how to examine what might be wrong. The greatest benefit lies in inner peace. When assumptions dissolve, the world appears clearer. People are seen as complex rather than hostile, problems as puzzles rather than disasters, change as information rather than threat. The mind settles because it no longer builds stories faster than reality provides facts. That clarity is the essence of wisdom, a calm intelligence grounded in evidence, humility, and thoughtful observation. In the end, questioning every assumption is not an act of rebellion against truth, but a journey toward it. It is a discipline that replaces reaction with reflection, prejudice with perspective, and certainty with understanding. Every time a question rises where an assumption once stood, the mind becomes freer, stronger, and more accurate. The person who lives by inquiry rather than assumption walks through difficulty with quiet confidence, guided not by impulse or bias, but by a steady pursuit of what is real. Number 3, observe without judgment. Observation is the first step toward wisdom, yet judgment is often the first reflex. The mind rushes to categorize everything, good or bad, right or wrong, success or failure. This instinct gives the illusion of control, but it also creates distortion. To observe without judgment means to see life as it truly is, without the filter of personal bias or emotional coloring. It is to stand still in awareness, not to become passive, but to understand reality before deciding how to respond. The ability to see clearly, without the noise of opinion, is one of the rarest and most powerful skills a person can cultivate. True observation begins with attention. It is the act of being fully present, noticing what is happening inside and outside without rushing to name it. Most people don't truly observe, they react. A person hears a comment and immediately labels it rude. They notice a delay and instantly call it disrespect. They see a mistake and brand it as failure. These judgments feel natural, but they cloud perception. When you remove labels, you begin to see layers that were invisible before: tone, context, intention, and cause. Observation, when free from judgment, becomes understanding. The discipline of non-judgmental awareness requires slowing down the mind. When something happens, give it space before forming an opinion. For a few seconds, just watch. Notice the details, the voice, the posture, the surroundings, your own heartbeat. See what is actually there, not what you assume it means. Often what first appears offensive or threatening softens under the light of calm attention. Observation without judgment turns reaction into inquiry. It allows truth to emerge naturally rather than being forced through personal interpretation. In difficult situations, this practice changes everything. When anger rises, observe it. Feel the heat in your chest, the tightening in your hands, the quickening of breath. Do not call it wrong or right, just notice. Emotion is information. It tells you something about your internal state. By watching it without judgment, you transform it from a storm into a signal. It becomes possible to respond wisely instead of being carried away. Every emotion can be studied like weather, temporary, shifting, and valuable when understood. When dealing with others, observing without judgment opens empathy. Instead of labeling someone's behavior as lazy, arrogant, or stubborn, watch the patterns behind it. Maybe exhaustion hides beneath laziness, insecurity beneath arrogance, fear beneath stubbornness. Judgment closes the door to understanding, while observation keeps it open. People rarely act without reason. If you can see what drives their actions without condemning them, you gain the power to respond with wisdom instead of hostility. This skill is essential in leadership, relationships, and self-mastery. Observation is also a mirror for the self. Many people judge themselves more harshly than they ever judge others. They see their mistakes and immediately attach moral weight. I failed. I'm not enough. I should have known better. These inner verdicts block growth. Replace them with awareness. Instead of saying, I failed, say, this did not go as planned. Instead of I'm weak, say, I felt resistance. This shift removes shame and creates room for learning. Non-judgmental observation turns self-criticism into self-knowledge. The senses are powerful tools for this kind of seeing. When overwhelmed, return to the physical present. Notice the temperature of the air, the sound in the room, the ground beneath your feet. Feel your breath move in and out. These sensations exist without moral labels. They simply are. The more you train to perceive without attaching stories, the clearer your mind becomes. A quiet, observing mind sees patterns where a reactive one sees chaos. Silence supports observation, not just the absence of speech, but the quieting of internal commentary. The voice inside that constantly evaluates that one should be slowed, not silenced completely, but softened enough for raw experience to emerge. Try spending a few minutes each day simply watching your thoughts as if they were clouds drifting across the sky. Don't chase them or argue with them. Notice their shapes and how they fade. This exercise builds mental distance. Over time, you'll see that thoughts are events, not truths. In conversation, practice listening with full attention instead of waiting to respond. Notice tone, pauses, and expression. Listen for what is said and unsaid. Most people listen through the filter of agreement or disagreement. Observation without judgment listens without agenda. It seeks understanding, not victory. When you listen this way, people feel seen, and conflicts begin to dissolve before they escalate. You create connection by giving space for others to reveal themselves without fear of instant evaluation. Judgment often hides in subtle forms: comparison, assumption, and premature conclusion. To counter this, adopt the mindset of a student. A student observes to learn, not to judge. Approach each person and situation as if it contains a lesson. Ask silently, "What is this moment trying to teach me?" This question transforms irritation into curiosity. It turns everyday difficulties into opportunities for insight. Even failure becomes useful when observed without condemnation. Observation without judgment also enhances decision-making. By seeing clearly, you gather accurate data before acting. When judgment clouds perception, you mistake appearances for reality and rush into choices based on emotion rather than understanding. A clear observer considers all angles and waits until truth stabilizes. Calm observation produces fewer regrets because actions arise from clarity, not confusion. Practicing this skill in daily life builds inner strength. In traffic, observe impatience without labeling it as bad. When criticized, notice defensiveness without immediately rejecting it. When praised, watch pride arise and pass without grasping it. Each moment becomes a field for self-study. Observation teaches detachment, not indifference, but balance. You remain engaged with life, but not enslaved by its fluctuation. To train consistency, choose short, intentional practices. Spend a few minutes each morning watching the world wake, sounds, light, motion, without naming or judging anything. During meals, focus fully on taste and texture without evaluating whether it's good or bad. These small acts train the mind to stay in observation mode. Over time, this awareness expands to larger challenges, allowing calm presence even in chaos. Observation without judgment doesn't mean ignoring morality or responsibility. It means understanding before concluding. Once you see clearly, you can still decide what is right, but your judgment will come from knowledge rather than impulse. Seeing first, judging later. That is the mark of maturity. A wise person acts after observation, while a reactive one acts before understanding. When you face disagreement, use observation to study your own inner movement. Notice when the chest tightens, when defensiveness sparks, when the urge to interrupt appears. Each signal is a clue about attachment to being right. By observing these impulses without judgment, they lose their control over you. You begin to value truth more than ego. This is how calm strength develops, not from suppressing emotion, but from seeing it clearly and choosing wisely. Over time, the practice reshapes identity. The observer within grows stronger than the reactor. You become less shaken by criticism, less addicted to praise, less disturbed by uncertainty. Observation brings stability because it anchors awareness in what is real, not in interpretations. The mind that sees clearly is free, even when circumstances are not favorable. Freedom begins not by changing events but by changing how they are seen. The essence of this practice is simple but profound. Let things be what they are before deciding what they mean. Every situation carries more information than first impressions reveal. The person who observes with patience gains insight that the impatient never see. The one who watches without judgment discovers truth hidden beneath appearances. In every challenge, this ability becomes a quiet source of power, the strength to understand before reacting, to perceive before labeling, and to remain steady while others are consumed by opinion. A life guided by observation instead of judgment becomes lighter. Conflicts lose fuel, misunderstandings shrink, and emotions flow naturally without turning into chains. Awareness becomes a companion that clarifies and steadies every step. To observe without judgment is not a passive state. It is an active form of intelligence, a conscious choice to see truth before reaction. In that clear seeing lies peace, resilience, and the calm authority of someone who understands that reality does not need immediate commentary to be meaningful. It only needs to be seen clearly, and from that clarity, all wise action begins. Number 4. Clarify core problem. Confusion is one of the greatest thieves of peace. When faced with a difficult situation, the mind often becomes tangled in layers of emotion, opinion, and distraction. The real issue hides beneath reactions, assumptions, and noise. Clarifying the core problem is the process of cutting through that fog to reach the heart of what truly needs to be addressed. It is the difference between endlessly circling symptoms and finding the root cause. The person who can identify the real problem already holds half the solution. This clarity saves time, energy, and emotional strength. Every challenge, whether personal or professional, contains two parts: what appears on the surface and what lies beneath. The surface is what is most visible: the argument, the mistake, the missed deadline, the disappointment. Beneath that surface is the core, the misunderstanding, unmet need, or flawed assumption that fuels everything else. Most people spend their time treating the surface symptom. They argue about words instead of values, fix temporary inconveniences instead of structural flaws, or blame circumstances instead of patterns. To clarify the core problem means to ask, again and again, what is really happening here, until illusion gives way to truth. Clarity begins with stillness. When confusion rises, stop reacting. Let the emotions settle just enough for reason to enter. Imagine muddy water. Stirring it only makes it cloudier. Give it time to still, and what was hidden becomes visible. Once calm, begin asking direct questions. What exactly is wrong? What outcome am I dissatisfied with? What part of this is within my control? These questions separate fact from feeling. They do not erase emotion, but prevent it from distorting perception. The goal is to name the problem in plain words, without exaggeration or blame. Language shapes clarity. The way a problem is described determines how it is understood. Vague descriptions create vague solutions. Saying everything is falling apart helps no one. Saying our communication breaks down when deadlines approach brings focus. Replace emotional statements with concrete ones. Write the issue as if explaining it to a neutral observer. If a friend read your description, would they know exactly what's wrong? If not, keep refining until the answer is yes. A clearly defined problem statement acts as a compass that points toward resolution. In relationships, many conflicts persist because the real issue is disguised by smaller arguments. Two people may fight about household chores, but the deeper problem may be a lack of appreciation or imbalance in responsibility. They might argue about tone, but what they truly want is respect. To clarify the core problem, move beyond the first complaint. Ask, what is this really about, or what am I actually needing right now? When both sides understand the underlying cause, tension often dissolves without further argument. Communication becomes honest instead of defensive. In professional life, clarity prevents wasted effort. Teams frequently chase the wrong targets because they mistake symptoms for causes. A drop in sales might appear to be a marketing problem when it's actually a product issue. Missed deadlines may seem like time management failures when the real issue is unclear priorities. Before acting, list all possible causes and test them. Gather facts, ask questions, look for patterns. The core problem is the one that, when solved, makes other issues easier or irrelevant. Finding it requires patience and precision, the qualities of disciplined thinkers. Self-reflection plays an important role. Many personal struggles appear external, but are rooted internally. A person may believe they are overwhelmed by circumstances, when the real issue is poor boundaries. They may think they lack motivation when the truth is lack of purpose. To clarify your own problems, step outside the story for a moment and observe as if analyzing someone else's situation. Ask what is actually missing: skill, rest, direction, or courage. Self-honesty cuts through confusion faster than any external advice. Avoid the trap of complexity. The human mind tends to complicate situations by adding unnecessary layers of interpretation. Often the real problem is simple, though uncomfortable. Simplicity is not naivety. It is accuracy. When faced with difficulty, strip the story to essentials. Who is involved? What happened? What needs to change? What is stopping that change? This direct approach eliminates drama and keeps focus on what matters. Complexity often hides avoidance, the desire to discuss endlessly rather than decide clearly. A useful technique is the 5 whys. When faced with a problem, ask why 5 times in sequence, each time drilling deeper. For example, the project failed. Why? Because communication broke down. Why? Because updates weren't shared on time. Why? Because team members were unclear about roles. Why? Because the plan lacked specific assignments. Why? Because leadership didn't define them early. The 5th answer reveals the root cause, not the surface failure, but the structural flaw. Applying this method in any situation exposes what truly requires attention. Clarifying the core problem also means identifying what is not the problem. Many distractions masquerade as central issues. Anger, fear, or inconvenience can make them appear urgent, yet urgency does not equal importance. Ask yourself what would happen if this element were removed. Would the main issue remain? If yes, then it's secondary. Learning to separate the essential from the irrelevant is a mark of sharp intelligence. It keeps effort concentrated instead of scattered. Emotions often resist clarity because they thrive on momentum. When upset, the mind wants validation, not precision. This is why people vent before they analyze. Venting may release pressure, but it does not solve anything until calm reasoning returns. After the initial wave passes, revisit the situation with analytical eyes. Write down what can be measured or verified, then write what is felt but unproven. Distinguish between evidence and perception. The real problem will stand firm while exaggerated feelings fade. Perspective from others can accelerate clarity. Ask someone not emotionally involved to restate what they think the problem is. Their distance allows them to see angles you might miss. Choose people who value truth over comfort, those who will challenge your assumptions rather than echo them. Feedback, when received without defensiveness, acts like a mirror that reveals blind spots. Sometimes one honest question from another person exposes what days of internal debate could not. Once the core problem is clear, the mind relaxes. The unknown is stressful because it feels unmanageable. Naming the real issue transforms chaos into structure. It creates direction. Even if the solution is not immediate, you can now plan intelligently. Action without clarity wastes energy. Action after clarity multiplies results. Clarity brings confidence because you are no longer guessing, you are addressing reality directly. To maintain this clarity, review it often. Problems evolve as new information appears. What seemed central yesterday might shift tomorrow. Keep verifying your understanding by observing outcomes. If solutions don't work, reassess the original diagnosis. The discipline of continuous clarification prevents stagnation. It keeps you aligned with truth, which is always the foundation of wise action. In every challenge, there are distractions designed to pull attention away from the core. Ego wants to defend reputation, emotion wants to protect comfort, and habit wants to avoid change. The commitment to truth must be stronger than all three. The person who prioritizes clarity over comfort becomes capable of calm precision, even in chaos. They no longer waste energy fighting shadows. They direct their strength exactly where it matters. This habit, once developed, transforms every area of life. Decisions become faster because focus sharpens. Relationships deepen because communication improves. Work becomes more productive because effort aligns with purpose. Clarity removes noise, and in silence, solutions emerge naturally. A clear mind sees patterns before they turn into problems. It anticipates rather than reacts. Ultimately, to clarify the core problem is an act of honesty. It requires the humility to admit what is real and the courage to face it. It means stepping beyond excuses, beyond stories, and meeting truth directly. This is not easy, but it is free. The moment you see clearly, confusion loses its hold. What once felt overwhelming becomes a series of steps. You stop chasing distractions and start addressing cause. And in that moment of alignment, you experience the quiet strength of knowing exactly what needs to be done. Nothing more, nothing less. Number 5. Separate facts, emotions. Every situation we face is made of two layers: what actually happens and how we feel about it. Facts and emotions coexist, but they are not the same. When they blend together, confusion begins. Decisions become clouded, conversations turn volatile, and small problems feel enormous. To think clearly in difficult moments, one must learn to separate what is real from what is felt. This separation does not mean denying emotion or becoming cold. It means recognizing emotion as a messenger, not a master. Facts reveal what exists. Emotions reveal how it affects us. When both are seen distinctly, judgment becomes accurate and calm returns. The first step in this practice is awareness. Most people merge fact and feeling without noticing. For example, someone might say, "You embarrassed me," but the factual part is only that something was said or done. The emotion is embarrassment. Another might think, "He disrespected me," when what actually happened is that words were spoken in a certain tone. The rest is interpretation. Identifying this difference brings freedom. It allows one to deal with the world as it is, rather than through the distortions of mood or pride. To separate the two, begin by describing any event in purely factual terms, like a reporter with no personal attachment. Ask, what exactly occurred? Who was involved? What words were spoken? What action was taken? Write these down as plainly as possible, without adjectives or conclusions. Then, in a second column, describe what you felt: anger, fear, disappointment, relief, shame, hope. Seeing the two lists side by side often reveals how much of the distress comes from interpretation rather than the event itself. This simple exercise restores perspective and prevents impulsive reactions. Emotions are valuable signals, not enemies. They alert us to needs, boundaries, and desires. Yet, they are temporary and often exaggerated in the heat of the moment. Facts, by contrast, remain constant. Imagine two people receiving critical feedback. One feels attacked and withdraws. Another feels motivated to improve. The facts are identical, but their emotional filters produce different experiences. Recognizing that emotions are subjective responses helps prevent them from defining reality. Instead of saying, "This is terrible," try, "This feels uncomfortable." The shift in language acknowledges emotion while keeping sight of fact. During conflict, emotions tend to dominate, pulling attention away from logic. The best time to separate them is before responding. When tension rises, pause and name what you feel without acting on it. For instance, "I feel hurt because I expected acknowledgement." Naming emotions reduces their intensity and transforms them into information. Then identify the fact: the person did not say thank you. The emotion is your reaction. The fact is the event. This simple awareness changes the quality of dialogue. It moves conversation from accusation to clarity. The discipline of separating facts and emotions is also crucial in decision-making. Many choices that seem urgent are driven by emotional urgency rather than necessity. When excitement or anger dictates timing, mistakes follow. The practical habit is to delay major decisions until emotional intensity lowers. Ask yourself, "If I were calm, would I choose the same?" This question protects you from impulsive moves that later bring regret. Facts often look different once emotion subsides, and clarity always rewards patience. Self-reflection deepens this process. At the end of a day, review one situation that caused strong emotion. Describe what actually happened, then describe how you interpreted it. For example, my manager questioned my idea. That is the fact. I felt undervalued and defensive. That is emotion. Then examine what evidence supports the interpretation. Did the manager truly reject the idea, or was the feedback neutral? This method prevents the mind from constructing stories based on feelings alone. It teaches emotional responsibility, the ability to own reactions instead of blaming circumstances for them. The body often signals emotion before the mind names it. Tight shoulders, shallow breathing, rapid heartbeat. These are physical cues that feeling has entered the scene. When noticed early, they serve as reminders to pause and observe. Taking slow, measured breaths helps separate thought from sensation. The goal is not to suppress emotion, but to create enough distance to think. Calm breathing slows the emotional wave so the rational mind can engage. In that small gap between stimulus and response lies freedom to choose rather than react. Communication improves dramatically when facts and emotions are presented separately. Instead of saying, "You made me angry," say, "When you arrived late, I felt frustrated." The first version accuses, the second clarifies. It identifies the fact and expresses emotion without blame. This approach invites understanding, rather than defensiveness. It teaches others how their actions affect you while keeping conversation grounded in reality. When practiced consistently, this communication style strengthens trust and reduces unnecessary conflict. Emotions have momentum. They can transform one small event into a larger story if left unchecked. For example, a brief mistake might lead to the thought, "I always mess things up," turning a single fact into a sweeping judgment. To prevent this, practice containment. Keep emotion within the boundary of the event that caused it. If someone criticizes one aspect of your work, don't generalize it to your worth as a person. Facts are specific, emotions exaggerate. Returning to specificity brings balance. Perspective helps refine this skill further. Ask how an outsider would describe the same situation. Would they see the same facts? Often they would not feel the same emotion, which shows how personal interpretation shapes perception. This realization softens ego's grip. It reminds you that emotions are responses colored by history, personality, and expectation. By seeing them as such, you gain compassion for yourself and others. Everyone views the world through their emotional lens. Learning to clean that lens is a form of mastery. There are moments when emotion carries truth that facts alone cannot express. Intuition, compassion, and empathy arise from feeling. The aim is not to dismiss emotion, but to integrate it wisely. Use facts to ground understanding and emotion to humanize it. For instance, in helping someone in pain, the fact is that they are struggling. The emotion of empathy motivates action. Balance emerges when neither dominates the other. Facts without emotion become cold. Emotion without facts becomes chaos. The harmony of both is wisdom. One helpful question to ask in heated moments is, what do I know and what do I feel? The answer separates information from interpretation. You might know that someone raised their voice. That's fact. You might feel disrespected. That's emotion. Once identified, decide what deserves action. Sometimes the fact requires correction. Other times the emotion simply needs acknowledgement. By distinguishing the two, you respond appropriately rather than impulsively. This practice also enhances resilience. Emotional waves come and go, but facts provide stability. When disappointment hits, focus on what remains true, your skills, values, and next steps. Facts anchor you when emotion threatens to pull you under. Over time, this grounding builds confidence. You learn that feelings are weather, they pass. Facts are terrain, they stay. Navigating life requires knowing the difference. In leadership, separating facts from emotions is a mark of maturity. A calm leader listens to strong feelings from others without absorbing them. They validate emotion but act on evidence. This steadiness inspires trust. It shows that clarity is possible even in turmoil. The same applies to personal life. Being able to stand in emotional storms without losing factual awareness makes one a source of stability for others. Practice strengthens this muscle. Each day offers opportunities to separate facts and emotions. A tense conversation, a disappointing email, a stressful delay. In each instance, slow down and ask what belongs to reality and what belongs to interpretation. Over time, this becomes second nature. The mind learns to recognize emotion as data, useful, but not definitive. This quiet discernment turns ordinary people into clear thinkers. When this ability matures, peace replaces chaos. You stop fighting feelings or pretending they are facts. You experience them fully, yet remain anchored in truth. The world becomes less threatening because perception grows accurate. Mistakes hurt less, arguments end faster, and decisions improve. Emotion continues to flow, but it no longer rules. Facts illuminate the path, and emotion adds depth to the journey. In the end, separating facts and emotions is an act of self-respect. It honors both intellect and feeling without letting either dominate. It is the foundation of rational strength, the quiet ability to stay composed while still caring deeply. Those who master this balance think clearly, speak truthfully, and live calmly, not because life is easy, but because they have learned to see it as it is, not as it feels. From that clarity comes lasting peace, and from that peace, unshakable strength. Number 6, challenge automatic thoughts. The mind is quick to speak before reason has a chance to listen. Thoughts rush in like reflexes, interpreting every word, glance, and silence with speed and conviction. These automatic thoughts appear so naturally that they seem like truth, yet many of them are distorted, shaped by old fears, assumptions, and patterns we have carried for years. To live wisely, one must learn to challenge these unexamined thoughts, not to silence them, but to test them, to see whether they serve truth or merely emotion. The way we think determines how we feel and act, so mastering thought is mastering life itself. Automatic thoughts are mental shortcuts. They are the mind's attempt to protect us, to make sense of situations without spending time on deep analysis. For example, if someone frowns while you speak, you might instantly think, they don't like me. That thought may feel factual, but it is only an interpretation. The truth could be that they are distracted, tired, or thinking of something else entirely. Automatic thoughts rarely ask for evidence. They declare, the danger lies not in having them, but in believing them without question. Challenging automatic thoughts begins with noticing them. Most people operate on mental autopilot, unaware of the stories they repeat internally. Awareness is the first act of freedom. Pay attention to your self-talk, especially during stress or discomfort. Notice patterns, exaggerations, predictions, or self-criticisms that arise automatically. Statements like, I always fail, nobody respects me, or this will end badly are clues that emotion has hijacked logic. Once recognized, pause before accepting them. Ask, is this a fact or just a thought? That single question breaks the illusion of certainty. The mind tends to create narratives that confirm what it already believes. This is called confirmation bias, the tendency to notice evidence that supports existing assumptions and ignore anything that contradicts them. If you believe you are unlucky, your mind will highlight every setback while overlooking every success. To challenge automatic thoughts, you must become a mental detective rather than a judge. Seek contrary evidence. Ask, what else could be true? What would I tell a friend if they thought this way? These questions weaken the grip of distorted thinking and restore balance. Another common distortion is catastrophizing, assuming the worst outcome without reason. When facing uncertainty, the mind often leaps to extremes. If this goes wrong, everything will fall apart. This habit breeds anxiety and paralysis. To counter it, focus on probabilities rather than possibilities. Ask, what is most likely to happen, not what is most terrifying. This reframes the problem into a manageable scale. Life rarely unfolds in absolutes. It operates in shade. Seeing that truth diminishes fear and strengthens rational confidence. Automatic thoughts also thrive on labeling, attaching sweeping identities to single moments. A mistake becomes, I'm a failure. A rejection becomes, I'm unworthy. Such thoughts are emotional generalizations, not factual descriptions. Challenge them by separating behavior from identity. Say, I made a mistake, instead of I am a failure. The first statement leaves room for growth. The second traps you in shame. Words matter, because language shapes thought, and thought shapes reality. Choose language that reflects accuracy, not self-condemnation. Mindfulness supports this practice deeply. By observing thoughts without immediate reaction, you create distance between stimulus and interpretation. When a negative thought arises, watch it pass through your awareness, as if it were a cloud drifting across the sky. You need not argue or suppress it. You simply observe. Over time, this observation weakens the power of impulsive thinking. You realize that thoughts are events, not commands. They come and go, and you decide which ones deserve belief. A useful exercise is to write down troubling thoughts and question them systematically. For each thought, ask, what evidence supports this? What evidence contradicts it? Is this thought based on current reality or past experiences? What would be a more balanced way to see this? The act of writing externalizes thought, giving it form so it can be examined with clarity. You begin to see how often your automatic thoughts rely on assumptions rather than facts. This awareness invites calm, reasoned response instead of reactive emotion. Emotions often amplify automatic thoughts. When fear rises, the mind looks for danger. When sadness lingers, it recalls every disappointment. This feedback loop can distort perception completely. The key is to interrupt the loop by calming the body before analyzing the thought. Breathe deeply, relax your muscles, and slow your pace. Once physical calm returns, thinking becomes clearer. Then revisit the thought with a neutral mindset. Ask whether it still feels as true when emotion is not shouting. Usually it does not. Another way to challenge automatic thoughts is to look at their consequences. Ask, what happens when I believe this thought? If the result is unnecessary stress, anger, or hopelessness, that thought deserves scrutiny. Not every thought that feels true is useful. Wisdom is choosing thoughts that lead to clarity, courage, and effective action. Replace unhelpful mental patterns with constructive ones. For instance, instead of thinking, I can't handle this, say, this is difficult, but I can find a way through. Subtle shifts in thought reshape attitude and behavior dramatically. It is also important to understand where automatic thoughts originate. Many are inherited echoes of childhood voices, cultural norms, or past experiences. If someone grew up with criticism, their mind may still expect disapproval. If they once failed publicly, their mind may now predict failure automatically. Recognizing these origins removes their power. You see that the thought is old, not current. It belongs to a time that no longer defines you. This recognition is liberating. It reclaims the present moment from the past. Challenging automatic thoughts is not about forced positivity. It is not pretending everything is fine or ignoring problems. It is about realism, seeing clearly without distortion. A realistic thinker acknowledges difficulty, but refuses to exaggerate it. They accept responsibility without self-attack. They see setbacks as data, not destiny. This balanced mindset fosters resilience because it aligns emotion with truth instead of fear. Over time, challenging automatic thoughts becomes an act of inner discipline. Each moment of awareness rewires the brain, creating new pathways of calm and reason. What once felt natural, reacting impulsively, assuming the worst, begins to lose strength. In its place grows measured thought, quiet confidence, and emotional balance. The mind becomes less like a battlefield and more like a council, where each thought must present evidence before it earns belief. In relationships, this practice brings harmony. When you challenge assumptions, you prevent misunderstandings from escalating. Instead of thinking, they ignored me, you might ask, could they be preoccupied? Instead of assuming hostility, you consider other explanations. This empathy protects connection and prevents needless conflict. Most interpersonal problems arise not from reality, but from unchallenged interpretations. A questioning mind is a peaceful one. There will be times when automatic thoughts return forcefully, especially under stress. The old mind seeks comfort in familiar patterns, even destructive ones. When that happens, do not fight the thought, acknowledge it calmly. Say to yourself, This is just an old thought pattern. I do not need to believe it. That acknowledgement is enough to weaken its grip. You are not required to control every thought, only to decide which ones deserve your trust. The strength of a person lies not in never having negative thoughts, but in refusing to be ruled by them. Life tests everyone, and the mind will always produce fears, doubts, and judgments. The difference between turmoil and peace lies in how you respond. Those who question their thoughts create space for wisdom. Those who accept them blindly remain prisoners of habit. As this discipline matures, you begin to think with intention rather than reaction. The mind becomes a tool rather than a tyrant. Situations that once triggered anxiety or anger now invite curiosity. You ask, what is really true here? Instead of assuming the worst. This is freedom, the power to see with clarity rather than distortion. In the end, to challenge automatic thoughts is to claim mastery over your inner world. It is the art of mental honesty, the courage to test your own beliefs before they shape your reality. Every time you pause, question, and correct, you build strength that cannot be taken by circumstance. You become guided not by fear or habit, but by clear perception. That clarity brings calm, and from calmness comes wisdom, the quiet confidence that you can handle whatever arises, not because thoughts disappear, but because you have learned to see them for what they are. Fleeting visitors, not permanent truth. Number 7. Evaluate possible outcomes. Every decision carries a chain of consequences. Some are visible, others hidden beneath layers of possibility. The ability to evaluate possible outcomes is not just a mental exercise. It is a form of wisdom that protects you from regret and guides you toward clarity. Life constantly demands choices, some small, like how to respond to a message, and others enormous, like changing careers or ending a relationship. In every choice, there are outcomes waiting to unfold. The wise person does not rush. They slow down, observe the landscape ahead, and think beyond impulse. Evaluating outcomes is the art of stepping outside the moment to see what the moment could become. The mind often prefers the comfort of immediacy. It wants relief now, reward now, certainty now. This tendency blinds people to long-term effects. Many of life's regrets come from decisions made in emotional urgency, where only the present feeling mattered. But emotions are temporary. Consequences are not. When you evaluate outcomes, you bring time into the conversation. You ask, what will this choice mean, not just today, but tomorrow, next month, and next year? That single question can prevent years of unnecessary pain. To evaluate outcomes well, start with clarity about the problem. Every unclear decision breeds confusion. Write down the exact situation, the possible actions you could take, and what you hope to achieve. Seeing the situation on paper often reveals angles that emotion hides. Once you have the options, mentally walk through each one as if it has already happened. Imagine the short-term effect, the first day, the first week, then project further, the longer-term effects. Ask how each path would affect your peace, relationships, finances, and personal growth. This process transforms vague thoughts into visible possibilities. When doing this, honesty is essential. The mind is skilled at presenting preferred outcomes as if they were guaranteed. People convince themselves that risky actions will somehow turn out perfectly because they want them to. But truth demands balance. Consider both the best and the worst possibilities, not from a place of fear, but realism. Ask what could go right, what could go wrong, and how you would handle either. This even-handed thinking builds resilience. You are no longer shocked by outcomes because you have already rehearsed them mentally. Evaluating outcomes also requires detachment from desire. When you want something deeply, the imagination becomes biased. It exaggerates the rewards and minimizes the risks. Detachment does not mean apathy. It means creating enough space to think clearly. Imagine advising someone else in your position. What would you tell them if you had no emotional investment in their choice? That perspective strips away bias and allows reason to lead. Wisdom often begins when emotion steps aside and observation steps forward. A useful technique is to use the principle of time distance. Ask how you will view this choice in the future. What will your future self thank you for? If you imagine looking back from 5 years ahead, what decision seems wiser? This method exposes the tricks of instant gratification. What feels urgent now may appear trivial or foolish in hindsight. Time distance reveals which decisions are built on impulse and which are grounded in value. When you train your mind to think beyond the present, you start acting in alignment with your long-term purpose, not your short-term feelings. In evaluating possible outcomes, also consider the ripple effect. Every decision affects more than just you. It touches relationships, responsibilities, and opportunities you may not yet see. A word spoken in anger may damage trust that took years to build. A financial risk may strain your family's security. A hasty commitment may limit future options. Thinking about ripples is not overthinking. It is responsibility in action. You cannot predict every consequence, but you can widen your awareness to see how far each choice might travel. Uncertainty will always exist. The goal is not to predict the future perfectly, but to prepare for it wisely. Instead of chasing certainty, focus on adaptability. Ask which choice allows you to remain flexible if things change. The wisest decisions often keep multiple doors open. They allow adjustment when reality unfolds differently than expected. Thinking in probabilities rather than guarantees helps maintain calm. The question becomes not, will this definitely work, but what are the chances, and am I prepared for each outcome? That mindset turns fear into strategy. Critical thinking thrives when paired with emotional steadiness. If anxiety dominates, every possible outcome will seem disastrous. If overconfidence dominates, every outcome will seem favorable. The key is balance, acknowledging both risk and opportunity, without exaggeration. Take a few minutes of silence before major decisions. Breathe, center yourself, and let emotions settle. The stillness allows your inner reasoning to speak clearly. Often the quiet moment before action determines the quality of what follows. Evaluating outcomes also means confronting reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. Many people cling to fantasy because truth feels uncomfortable. They invest in what could be rather than what is. Real evaluation demands courage, the courage to face inconvenient facts, to admit when something may fail, or to accept that a dream might need more time. Pretending that everything will work out simply because you want it to is not hope. It is avoidance. True hope is paired with preparation and honesty. A practical method is scenario mapping. Take your main decision and outline 3 paths: the best-case scenario, the worst-case scenario, and the most likely scenario. For each, write how you would respond. This transforms fear into planning. Even the worst-case scenario loses power once you have a response ready. You discover that most fears are manageable when examined closely. The human mind fears the unknown more than the unpleasant. By mapping outcomes, you replace the unknown with understanding, and anxiety dissolves. Another key principle is opportunity cost. The awareness that every decision means not choosing something else. Time, energy, and attention are limited. When you say yes to one thing, you say no to another. Evaluate not just what you gain, but what you sacrifice. This perspective encourages careful selection of priorities. It teaches that wise choices are not about having everything, but choosing what truly matters. When you evaluate outcomes through this lens, you align your decisions with your deeper values rather than temporary emotion. Real-world application of this thinking can be simple yet powerful. Suppose you are considering a major career move. Instead of focusing only on the excitement or fear, analyze each outcome, how it affects your stability, growth, relationships, and purpose. Imagine both success and setback. Prepare for both. Then compare the peace you feel with each scenario. Peace is often a quiet indicator of alignment. If one path feels chaotic even in imagination, it may not be right for now. If another feels demanding yet meaningful, it likely holds growth. Evaluating outcomes is not about perfection. It is about alignment between vision and reality. In relationships, this practice prevents impulsive words and actions that cause long-lasting damage. Before speaking in anger or making emotional decisions, pause and imagine how different responses might play out. One harsh statement could break trust. One moment of patience could preserve it. Evaluating outcomes in human interaction is a sign of maturity. It replaces emotional reaction with deliberate compassion. This skill extends even to daily habits. Every small action accumulates outcomes over time. Skipping rest today may feel productive, but exhaustion later is the cost. Avoiding a difficult conversation may preserve comfort now, but prolong tension tomorrow. The wise see beyond the surface. They understand that small choices repeated daily shape the larger direction of life. Evaluating outcomes is not only for big decisions, it is a daily mindset of foresight. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. You start to anticipate the second and third steps of every choice, without overanalyzing. The mind becomes strategic, rather than reactive. When unexpected events arise, you are less shaken, because you have already trained yourself to think ahead. This habit builds calm confidence, the quiet knowing that whatever happens, you have considered the possibilities and are ready to face them with composure. Sometimes, after all evaluation, you will still face uncertainty. Life rarely offers full clarity before commitment. When that happens, trust your principles. If a choice aligns with your values, integrity, and long-term growth, it is usually the right direction, even if the path ahead is unclear. Evaluating outcomes is not meant to eliminate risk, but to ensure that whatever risk you take is conscious, purposeful, and in harmony with who you are. The discipline of evaluating possible outcomes transforms chaos into order. It replaces impulse with insight. It teaches patience without paralysis. It trains the mind to see not just what is visible, but what could unfold. Over time, this habit becomes a way of living, thoughtful, deliberate, and steady. You stop chasing temporary relief and start creating lasting peace. Every thoughtful decision becomes a small act of wisdom, a quiet statement that you choose to live by reason, not reaction. And that is where true power lies, not in controlling the future, but in shaping it wisely, one decision at a time. Number 8. Decide with reason. Reason is the quiet strength behind every wise decision. It does not shout or demand attention. It simply offers clarity when the noise of emotion begins to cloud judgment. To decide with reason means to allow understanding to guide action rather than impulse. It is a discipline, a way of thinking that transforms confusion into direction. Every moment of choice carries tension between emotion and reason, between what feels urgent and what is truly right. The art of decision-making lies in mastering that balance, in knowing when to listen to the heart and when to follow the mind. Emotions are powerful and often necessary, but they are poor navigators. They respond to the present, not the whole picture. When anger, fear, or excitement dominates a decision, the future becomes an afterthought. Reason, on the other hand, steps back. It observes, questions, and analyzes before acting. It is not cold or detached. It simply demands evidence before belief. To decide with reason is to honor both feeling and fact, but to let fact take the lead when outcomes matter. The process begins with slowing down. Most poor decisions are made in haste, driven by the discomfort of uncertainty. People want resolution quickly, so they choose whatever eases tension in the moment. But clarity is rarely found in speed. Taking a pause allows logic to organize the chaos of thought. When the mind is still, the path becomes visible. Waiting does not mean avoiding. It means giving the truth time to surface. Reason needs silence to work. To make rational decisions, one must first define the problem clearly. Many people make choices without fully understanding what they are deciding about. The mind reacts to fragments of information and creates conclusions built on assumptions. Clarity begins by asking the simplest question: what exactly am I trying to solve? Writing down the problem in precise terms turns confusion into focus. Once the problem is defined, reason can examine it from multiple angles without distortion. Information is the foundation of reason. Acting on partial knowledge invites error. Before deciding, gather facts, not opinions, not guesses, but verifiable information. The disciplined thinker checks sources, compares perspectives, and seeks understanding beyond the surface. This is not overthinking. It is due diligence. Rational decision-making is built on the willingness to know before choosing. It protects against manipulation, wishful thinking, and emotional exaggeration. Reason thrives on perspective. Every choice looks different depending on where you stand. When caught in emotion, the mind narrows its view. It sees only one side, often the side that aligns with personal fear or desire. Expanding perspective means considering how others might see the situation. Ask how this decision affects everyone involved, not just yourself. Imagine standing outside the situation, observing it as a neutral witness. This detachment brings fairness, helping decisions become balanced rather than self-centered. Reason also involves questioning motives. Every decision has a motive behind it, some noble, some self-serving. Before acting, ask, why am I doing this? If the answer is to prove something, to seek approval, or to avoid discomfort, the choice may be emotionally driven rather than rational. True reason seeks alignment with values, not validation. It measures success, not by how the choice feels now, but by how it stands over time. A reasoned decision remains steady even after emotion fades. The practice of rational choice also includes examining consequences without distortion. Many people imagine outcomes that fit their hopes, while ignoring potential costs. Reason demands that both gain and loss be acknowledged equally. It is not pessimism, it is preparation. Thinking through consequences helps ensure that actions are sustainable, not impulsive. The rational mind asks, if I do this, what chain of events might follow? And can I live with those results? This foresight is the essence of responsible living. To decide with reason, you must also guard against bias. The human mind is not neutral. It prefers comfort, familiarity, and confirmation. It clings to ideas that support existing beliefs. Recognizing bias is an act of humility. It means admitting that perception is limited and can be flawed. One way to counter bias is to deliberately consider the opposite view. If you strongly favor one decision, ask yourself what arguments could challenge it. This practice expands awareness and prevents blindness born of certain. Emotional control plays a central role in reasoned decision-making. When emotions surge, reason retreats. In those moments, do not attempt to decide. Instead, wait until the emotional wave has passed. Take a walk, breathe deeply, engage in quiet reflection. Time is the ally of logic. What feels urgent now often loses intensity with distance. Once calm returns, reason can re-enter the discussion. Making decisions from neutrality ensures that they reflect truth, not reaction. A reasoned decision also considers alignment with core principles. Every person has values, honesty, compassion, integrity, growth, that define who they are. Choices made outside those values may bring temporary satisfaction, but long-term conflict. When faced with difficult decisions, ask which option honors your principles. Reason serves not only logic but conscience. A decision that violates your moral compass may appear smart, but will never bring peace. True rationality includes ethical clarity. Reason does not eliminate intuition. Intuition can be a valuable ally when it arises from experience, rather than fear. The difference is subtle. Fear-based impulses push you toward escape. Experience-based intuition guides you toward wisdom. A reasoned mind knows how to distinguish the two. It listens to intuition but verifies it through evidence. It balances instinct with analysis. Together they create decisions that are both human and wise. Deciding with reason also requires acceptance that no choice is perfect. The search for certainty often paralyzes action. People delay decisions endlessly, waiting for absolute assurance. Reason understands that risk is part of life. It seeks the best available option, not the flawless one. Once enough evidence is gathered and the likely outcomes are clear, reason acts. Confidence grows not from knowing everything, but from knowing enough. Decisive clarity is the fruit of rational preparation. The mind that decides with reason avoids the extremes of overthinking and recklessness. It neither rushes blindly nor hesitates endlessly. It balances reflection with action. This balance transforms stress into composure. When you know you have thought carefully, you no longer fear mistakes as much. Even if the result is not perfect, you can stand by it because it was made consciously, not impulsively. That peace of mind is one of the greatest rewards of reasoned living. Applying this discipline to daily life makes a remarkable difference. Imagine confronting conflict at work, receiving unexpected criticism, or facing uncertainty in a relationship. Instead of reacting defensively, you pause and analyze. You ask, what are the facts? What do I know for sure? What do I want to achieve? Then you consider possible actions and evaluate which aligns with fairness, growth, and integrity. This calm, methodical thinking prevents emotional outbursts and creates solutions grounded in wisdom. In leadership, deciding with reason inspires trust. A leader guided by logic rather than ego or impulse earns respect. People sense stability in rational decision-making. They see consistency between words and actions. Such steadiness becomes a source of strength for others. The same applies in personal life. When your decisions are guided by reason, those around you feel safe in your presence because you are not ruled by momentary moods. Over time, this way of thinking shapes character. Each rational decision builds inner strength, just as repeated discipline builds muscle. The habit of pausing, analyzing, and acting consciously becomes second nature. You stop reacting to life and start directing. Challenges no longer intimidate because you trust your process. Even when life surprises you, you remain composed, knowing that you can navigate with clarity rather than chaos. The ultimate goal of deciding with reason is not to suppress feeling but to elevate it. Emotion and reason can coexist in harmony when each stays in its rightful place. Emotion gives energy, reason gives direction. Together they form balance. When the mind leads and the heart supports, decisions become both intelligent and meaningful. This is the foundation of wisdom, to feel deeply but act wisely. In the end, reasoned decision-making is an act of respect for yourself, for truth, and for the consequences that follow. It reflects discipline, maturity, and trust in your ability to think clearly. Life will always present uncertainty, but you can meet it with composure. When you choose to decide with reason, you stand firmly in the present, guided by understanding rather than impulse. The world around you may be chaotic, but inside, there is order. That quiet order is strength. The strength to think clearly, act purposefully, and move forward without regret, knowing that your choices are built not on emotion, but on the steady foundation of truth. Number 9. Reflect after action. Growth begins not in the moment of action, but in the reflection that follows. Acting with intention is important, but pausing afterward to study what truly happened transforms experience into wisdom. Reflection is not about regret or self-criticism. It is the art of learning from reality. Every choice, every response, every situation carries a lesson, yet most people rush forward, eager to escape discomfort or celebrate success, without pausing to understand what the moment taught them. Reflecting after action is how one evolves from mere participation in life to mastery of it. It turns random experience into deliberate improvement. When a situation ends, the human instinct is to move on quickly. If it went well, we celebrate. If it went poorly, we distract ourselves to avoid the sting. But growth demands that we resist this impulse. The space immediately after an event is rich with insight. The mind is still close to the details, the emotions, the decisions, the outcomes. Reflection captures those impressions before they fade. It gives structure to experience, allowing the mind to recognize patterns that might otherwise remain hidden. To reflect effectively, one must cultivate honesty. It is easy to rewrite history in a way that protects pride. The ego wants to paint every decision as justified, every reaction is understandable. But truth lives in transparency. Honest reflection requires humility, the willingness to see your own flaws without shame and your strengths without arrogance. This clarity transforms mistakes from sources of pain into tools for growth. The question is never, did I fail, but what did this teach me? Reflection is most powerful when done calmly. Immediately after an event, emotions can distort perception. Anger, guilt, or pride cloud judgment and make reflection shallow. Wait until the intensity fades, then revisit the situation with a clear mind. In that stillness, perspective emerges. You begin to see details that emotion once blurred. You notice how your tone changed in a conversation, how your assumptions shaped your choices, how your focus drifted at a crucial moment. These small observations are what refine understanding. There is an art to asking the right questions after any action. Start with the simplest. What exactly happened? Describe it objectively, without labeling it as good or bad. Then ask, why did I act the way I did? What emotions or thoughts influenced my decision? Finally, reflect on the outcome. What resulted from my actions? What did I gain or lose? This step-by-step analysis builds awareness. It separates story from fact, emotion from event, illusion from truth. The answers reveal not only what occurred but who you were in that moment. Reflection should always lead to adjustment. Learning without application is wasted insight. Once you understand what worked and what didn't, decide how you will approach similar situations in the future. This might mean setting clearer boundaries, communicating differently, or thinking longer before acting. Each insight is a tool for refinement. The goal is not to become perfect, but to become more conscious, more aligned with reason, purpose, and inner calm. Many people confuse reflection with rumination. Reflection is objective and purposeful. Rumination is emotional and repetitive. Rumination replays mistakes to amplify regret. Reflection reviews them to extract knowledge. The difference lies in direction. Reflection moves forward. Rumination stays stuck. When reflecting, focus on what can be learned, not what cannot be changed. The past has no power except through the lessons it offers. Accept the event, take the wisdom, and release the. Reflection also strengthens emotional intelligence. By examining your reactions, you start to understand your triggers and behavioral patterns. You notice which situations provoke defensiveness, impatience, or fear. This awareness gives you power to respond differently next time. When you can recognize emotion before it takes control, you are no longer its prisoner. Over time, this habit builds stability. You stop living on autopilot and start responding to life with awareness and balance. In relationships, reflection after conflict is invaluable. Arguments often expose hidden insecurities and communication gaps. After tension cools, take time to analyze your part in the exchange. Ask what you were trying to achieve, what emotions took over, and how you could have expressed yourself more clearly. Reflection prevents repetition of destructive patterns. It allows compassion to replace blame for both yourself and others. True understanding is born not from judgment, but from awareness of shared humanity. In professional life, reflection separates average performers from exceptional ones. Those who constantly analyze their work refine their judgment, while those who act without review repeat the same errors. After completing a project, handling a client, or facing a setback, review what went well and what could improve. This process develops precision and adaptability. A reflective professional grows faster because they never let experience pass unused. They treat every outcome as data for improvement. Reflection also deepens gratitude. When you review your day with awareness, you notice not only what went wrong, but also what went right. Small successes, kind gestures, moments of resilience, these become visible only through reflection. Recognizing them reinforces a sense of appreciation and balance. Gratitude does not deny struggle. It acknowledges growth within it. A reflective mind sees both light and shadow and understands that both are necessary for progress. To cultivate reflection as a daily practice, create a ritual of review. At the end of each day, take a few quiet minutes to look back. Ask yourself, what did I learn today? What challenged me? What did I handle well? What could I have done differently? Write these thoughts down. The act of writing organizes memory and brings hidden insights to the surface. Over time, these reflections become a personal map of growth, a record of how you evolve through life's lessons. Reflection also builds patience with yourself. Growth is not a straight line. Some lessons repeat until truly understood. When you reflect regularly, you begin to see progress even in small improvements. You notice that you recover faster from frustration, that you communicate more calmly, that you think more clearly under pressure. These realizations strengthen self-trust. You stop demanding perfection and start appreciating persistence. Reflection turns self-doubt into self-awareness. In moments of success, reflection is just as important. It reminds you what led to achievement, the discipline, focus, and persistence behind the result. This understanding keeps pride in check and motivates continued effort. Without reflection, success can breed complacency or arrogance. With it, success becomes a reminder of what is possible when effort aligns with purpose. Reflecting after triumphs grounds humility and gratitude in equal measure. Reflection also enhances decision-making. When you review past choices and their outcomes, patterns emerge. You begin to recognize which impulses lead to regret and which lead to peace. This pattern recognition sharpens intuition, making future decisions clearer and faster. Reflection feeds reason. It provides the evidence needed for sound judgment. Each review of the past becomes a rehearsal for better decisions ahead. There is quiet strength in being able to look back without denial or self-blame. This mindset transforms adversity into wisdom. Painful moments lose their sting when seen through the lens of growth. Even failure becomes a teacher. The person who reflects deeply no longer fears mistakes, because every mistake carries meaning. Reflection makes experience valuable, no matter how difficult it felt at the time. Reflection after action is also a form of mindfulness. It anchors awareness in the present, while acknowledging the past. It trains the mind to observe life instead of rushing through it. Each moment becomes an opportunity to understand yourself and the world more clearly. This awareness fosters calm, resilience, and purpose. When you reflect regularly, you move through life with greater steadiness, because you are continually learning from everything that happens. The most powerful reflections often come in solitude. A quiet walk, a few minutes of stillness before sleep, or silent contemplation in the morning. These are sacred spaces where understanding grows. In those moments, the mind is free from distraction, and truth rises to the surface. Solitude does not isolate. It refines perception. It connects you more deeply to your own wisdom. Ultimately, reflection after action is an act of self-respect. It means you care enough about your growth to study your own life. It turns ordinary days into opportunities for mastery. The world moves quickly, but the wise move thoughtfully. They act with intention, observe the outcome, and adjust their path with each lesson. Over time, this simple habit builds extraordinary depth. It transforms confusion into clarity, mistakes into progress, and actions into art. When you take the time to reflect, you stop drifting through life and begin to navigate it with awareness. You understand that reflection is not looking backward, it is looking deeper. It is the bridge between experience and evolution, between living and truly learning. Every action, no matter how small, becomes a teacher. Every challenge becomes a mirror. Through reflection, you gain not only knowledge, but wisdom. The quiet understanding that growth is not found in doing more, but in learning deeply from all that you do. Number 10. Practice calm daily. Calm is not something that appears when life is easy. It is something you build when life is difficult. It is a practice, not a mood. The world will never stop being noisy, unpredictable and demanding, but calm allows you to stay steady within it. Practicing calm daily is not about escaping emotion or pretending to be unaffected. It is about mastering the space between what happens and how you respond. In that space lies your freedom, your wisdom, and your peace. Calm is not the absence of pressure. It is the ability to remain centered no matter how much pressure surrounds you. Every day presents countless chances to lose balance. Traffic that tests your patience, conversations that trigger emotion, plans that fall apart without warning. These moments are training grounds for calm. Each time you pause before reacting, each time you breathe through tension, each time you choose understanding over frustration, you strengthen that inner stillness. Calm is built one conscious moment at a time. It does not grow through meditation alone, but through how you live when life challenges you. To practice calm daily, you must first understand that calm is a decision. It does not arrive by luck or external comfort. It is a choice made repeatedly until it becomes instinct. You cannot wait for the world to quiet before finding peace. You create peace amidst the noise. This practice begins the moment you wake. The tone of your morning shapes the quality of your day. Starting with a few minutes of silence, Breathing or mindful observation allows the mind to center before being pulled into distraction. Calm mornings create strong foundations for clear thought and steady emotion. Awareness is the foundation of calm. You cannot manage what you do not notice. Most people drift through the day reacting automatically, unaware of how tension accumulates in their body and thoughts. Practicing calm means becoming attentive to your internal state. Notice when your breathing quickens, when your shoulders tighten, when irritation begins to rise. These signals are invitations to pause. The simple act of noticing interrupts the automatic cycle of stress. Awareness turns emotion from master into messenger. Breathing is the simplest and most powerful tool for daily calm. The mind and breath are deeply connected. When one is restless, the other follows. Slowing your breath tells the nervous system that you are safe. This signal lowers the intensity of emotion and restores clarity. A few deep, slow breaths can shift the entire course of a moment. It seems too simple to matter, yet this small act realigns your body and mind toward balance. Calm begins where breath begins. Another way to strengthen calm is through acceptance. Most frustration comes from resisting reality, wanting people to behave differently, wishing circumstances were easier, fighting what already is. Acceptance does not mean approval, it means acknowledgement. When you stop arguing with reality, your energy returns to what you can influence. Calm grows when you let go of control over what you cannot change. The practice of acceptance brings quiet strength, not passive surrender, but intelligent peace. A calm mind is not empty, it is focused. Modern life trains attention to scatter, from one notification to another, from one thought to the next. This constant mental movement creates fatigue and anxiety. Practicing calm means reclaiming control of your attention. Focus on one thing fully, whether it's a conversation, a task, or a simple breath. When your attention rests in the present, your mind stops chasing problems that do not yet exist. Focus dissolves anxiety because it roots awareness in what is real right now. Emotional calm is also built through perspective. When something goes wrong, the mind tends to exaggerate its importance. A small inconvenience becomes a catastrophe in thought. Calm requires you to step back and ask, will this matter in a week, a month, a year? This simple question reduces intensity and brings proportion. Perspective shrinks problems to their true size, allowing reason to guide emotion. Calm is not ignorance of difficulty. It is the wisdom to see difficulty clearly without drowning in it. Kindness towards yourself is another essential part of daily calm. Harsh self-criticism fuels tension and drains focus. When you make a mistake, respond with understanding instead of anger. Growth requires patience. Speaking to yourself as you would to someone you care for softens the mind and relaxes the body. Self-compassion is not weakness. It is clarity. You perform better, think clearer, and recover faster when you treat yourself with respect. Calm cannot coexist with inner hostility. The environment around you also shapes your ability to stay calm. Surroundings filled with clutter, constant noise, or negativity make stillness harder to sustain. Create spaces that support peace, a quiet corner, a clean desk, a few minutes without a screen. Simplicity in your environment helps simplicity in your thoughts. When the outer world feels ordered, the inner world finds it easier to settle. Calm flourishes in spaces that allow presence. Calm is also maintained through deliberate routines. Predictable actions reduce uncertainty and anchor the day. Simple rituals, morning stretches, mindful meals, an evening walk, signal the brain to slow down and recharge. These practices remind you that peace is built, not stumbled upon. Even 5 minutes of intentional stillness daily can reshape how you experience stress. Consistency matters more than duration. The discipline of returning to calm every day strengthens resilience for moments when life tests you most. One of the most powerful ways to practice calm is through listening. Most people listen to respond, not to understand. They carry tension into every conversation, ready to defend or persuade. Calm listening means being fully present with another person's words, without judgment or interruption. It transforms communication into connection. When you listen calmly, others feel safe to express themselves, and conflict often softens before it grows. Calm is contagious. It spreads through presence and patience. Practicing calm also requires guarding your mental diet. What you consume, news, conversations, digital content, shapes your inner state. Constant exposure to negativity, outrage, or comparison keeps the nervous system on alert. Choose wisely what you feed your mind. Read what uplifts, listen to what teaches, engage with what adds meaning. You cannot expect inner stillness if you continually invite chaos into your attention. Protecting your peace is an act of self-discipline, not isolation. Movement is another way to nurture calm. The body and mind are linked, and physical stillness without mental relaxation can turn into tension. Gentle exercise, stretching, or even mindful walking releases stored stress and rebalances energy. When the body moves freely, the mind follows. Calm is not only mental, it is physical. Each time you move with awareness, you remind yourself that peace is active, not passive. Gratitude deepens calm because it shifts focus from what is missing to what is present. Each day, take a moment to acknowledge something you appreciate. A kind word, a comfortable home, a small victory. Gratitude quiets the restless desire for more and grounds you in sufficiency. Calm thrives where contentment grows. The mind at peace is one that recognizes the abundance already here. Calm is also built through boundaries. Without limits, your energy scatters in every direction. Saying yes to everything leads to exhaustion. Saying no wisely preserves balance. Boundaries protect mental space and emotional clarity. They allow you to engage fully with what truly matters. Practicing calm daily means being intentional about where your attention and energy go. It is not selfish to protect your peace. It is essential. Even in moments of high stress, calm can be practiced through small acts of awareness. When you feel overwhelmed, stop for a brief pause. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice the rhythm of your breathing. Remind yourself that you are capable of handling one thing at a time. This grounding technique interrupts panic and restores control. The more you practice it, the faster calm becomes your natural response. Practicing calm daily is a lifelong discipline. There will be days when you feel steady and others when your patience runs thin. The goal is not perfection but progress. Each time you return to calm after losing it, you reinforce inner strength. Over time, what once triggered frustration barely stirs reaction. The storms outside remain, but within, you have built shelter. Calm is a form of wisdom because it allows clarity to guide action. When you are calm, you think better, speak more thoughtfully, and see situations as they are, not as fear or anger paint them. It gives you authority over your own mind. Those who practice calm daily become leaders of themselves, unshaken by the noise of the world, grounded in reason, gentle in strength. In the end, calm is not something you seek. It is something you cultivate. It grows from discipline, awareness, and intention. It is the quiet reward of living in harmony with your thoughts rather than being ruled by them. Practicing calm daily transforms life from a series of reactions into a sequence of conscious choices. When calm becomes your default state, even chaos loses its power over you. You no longer chase peace, you embody it, and from that stillness, every decision, every action, and every moment of your life begins to flow with quiet confidence and unwavering grace.